Welcome to the Stronger Caribbean Together podcast. This podcast is a monthly conversation between the project team of Stronger Caribbean Together and Caribbean partners working on the front lines. I'm Kristinia Doughorty, a research assistant supporting the Stronger Caribbean project.
And I'm Dr. André Habet, a researcher in the area of rhetoric and a journalist. Every month, we'll bring you a conversation that shows how collectives are mobilizing to alter present systems and generate liberatory futures for the people of the Caribbean.
Our first season provides insights into the ways those people are confronting the challenges of disaster capitalism as people across the Caribbean stand together, united against disaster capitalism.
Today, we are talking to Pierre Mary Louise of Tet Kole, a group of peasants engaged in organized struggle for food sovereignty against the complex array of forces creating disaster capitalism in Haiti for themselves and for their communities.
Tet Kole is a Haitian food producers organization birthed through peasant and social struggles for survival and freedom from political disasters in the form of repressive regimes, extractive political economy, and internationally abetted state violence against the nation.
Throughout the conversation, we discussed the vision and organizational strategy of Tet Kole as a community-based organization founded in the context of state crises and violence, and seeking food sovereignty as a basic right against vulnerability to disasters and disaster capitalism.
To assist in this conversation, Edward Carl Joseph is providing Haitian Creole to English interpretation. You'll hear Edward speaking in English in response to our questions following the initial introduction to Pierre. Join us for that conversation now. What is Tet Kole? Can you describe your role in this movement and its missions?
Oui, non, moi c'est Louis Pierre Mary. Moi c'est membre Tet Kole ti paysan haïtien. Moi sorti dans région sud, plus précisément dans département Gradas.
My name is Louis Pierre Mary, okay, and I'm Haitian. I'm from the southern region of Haiti. I'm a member of National Executive Committee of Tet Kole. I play the role of General Secretary in the Committee of Haitian Small Peasant Association of Tet Kole. My mission in this National Executive Committee is to execute and make sure that all the decisions from the National Congress and assemblies are being executed. To ensure the administration of the national movement, to ensure that the international and external relations of the movement are being ensured, save the archives of the movement, control all the assets of the movement and all the departments where it's present. And I also take care of the day-to-day functioning of the organization. So this is my role as the General Secretary of the National Committee of the Small Peasant Association of Tet Kole. Tet Kole is a national movement of small peasants that was born that was founded in September of 1986, 6 months after February 7th, which marks the end of the dictatorship of Jean-Claude Duvalier. But way before this period of 1986, the movement of Tet Kole already started to flourish in several geographical departments of the country. Northwest, North, Latibonite, Plateau Central, South and Southeast. So from 1970 to 1985 is when we started having Tèt Sub, group of Caritas Habitation, and a group of L'Église, TKL. At that time, there were some Catholic laymen and priests from the Catholic Church who really contributed to build the foundation of these peasants organization. At that time, there was a very strong stream of liberation theology that was crossing the church. And that's why there are a lot of lawyers, sociologists that agreed to join the fight for liberation, the fight to open the eyes of the poor masses, in particular the peasant masses, with the gospel of liberation. The deep awareness work that we were doing at that time made the people feel the need to set up a national movement of small peasants in the country to allow other organizations to lead the fight to change the bad living conditions they lived in and to contribute and participate in the global struggle in the country. There were other organizations that existed at that time. Squad organization of hard work, organization of Duvanjou, which would be translated as dawn organization, at dawn, for example. Mazenga organization. These organizations were basically for field work, and also we can't forget the traditional organization like the Rara organization, for example. When Tet Kole Caritas group organization and Tiliglis group organization started flourishing, they started facing an organization called Community Council that was directly linked to Jean-Claude Duvalier's power at that time. So it would always be the big guns, the people with a lot of resources that were always at the head of the Community Council organization. That would later be transformed into CONAGEC, which is another organization during Jean-Claude Duvalier's term. The eye-opening work that was being done at that time during the development of Tet Kole group and Caritas group, it allowed the small peasant to begin to discover that the Community Council were their enemy. We must also say that from February 7th of 1986, the suffering of the masses, well, of the people in general, and the mass of the peasant in particular, were always under exploitation, injustice, arbitrary arrest, physical abuse, plots of the bourgeois and swindlers, the army, the imperialist countries against the small peasants, and the mass of the people in the country. It was just very bad. Tèt Kole Paysans Haitiens is a national movement based on 3 stages to be able to function. There's a community assembly that meets every 3 months, a departmental assembly that meets every 6 months, and a national confederation that meets every 2 years. Each structure has a coordination committee and executive committee. The National Confederation has 4 structures. There's the National Congress, which is one of the biggest one within Tet Kole. There's the National Assembly, which is the second biggest one. There's the National Coordination, which is the third one, the third biggest one. And there is also the National Executive Committee of Tet Kole, which works permanently and for which I'm the General Secretary. It carry out all the activities of the organization. So the objective of Tet Kole is to motivate and raise awareness and mobilize all the small farmers in the country so they can join forces in food as well as a social force in the country. And the second mission is to continue to keep the demands of the small peasants in mind. The third objective is to help the small farmers to identify the economic issues they're facing as a social class in the society, such as economic, social, cultural, political, and environmental problems. Another mission is the fight for the peasants to get land to work, modern tools to work, quality seeds, good agricultural credit, if I may say, water to irrigate the land, great technical support, and good agrarian reform, if I may say. Another mission is to fight for food sovereignty, fight for decentralization and deconcentration of the country, is to fight for all the basic services to reach the small peasants. We already talked about the agrarian reform. Is to promote agricultural production and breeding. Now, we're going to talk about the quality of the work that Tet Kole is doing in the country. Tet Kole works in promoting mutual solidarity of the cooperatives and the producer groups. We also work in promoting youth activities in the community. We work also in promoting women peasants. Yes, we also work in promoting the agricultural products of small farmers, either by fighting the resources for farmers to produce more or by finding places for them to sell their products at a good price. The head of the association encourages its members and the rest of the population to value the products of small farmers in their garden. We also work in keeping the memory of all the little peasants and all the militant who fell in the fight against impunity and injustice in all forms. And we also work to fight against the exploitation of the little peasants, fighting for their lands and etc.
Tet Kole speaks about the struggles they face supporting peasants due to limited support from the government.
So I do believe that what we're trying to do in helping the population and helping the peasants is not really enough due to the absence of the government. We tried our best with the bare minimum to carry out all the activities, but because of the fact that the government is so absent, it is very hard for us to actually complete and actually measure the response of the communities, that are seeing the work that we're doing in the community. So it's very hard for us to measure that because there are so many structures that are not in place. So we can't really evaluate the response of the communities.
Thank you very much for the reply. We'd like to move on now to talking more specifically about disasters and wanting to know, how are the communities that Tet Kole works with vulnerable to disaster? And what, in addition to the actual hazards themselves, drive the vulnerability of the community?
Yeah, the communities are very vulnerable when faced with disasters. Misfortunes hangs over their head because there's no basic structures in the community, and there's no basic services that ensure that the peasant needs are being met in the communities. And there's no infrastructure in the communities, such as school, hospital, road, agricultural credit, nor technical support. The absence of the state, of the government, is what is causing this form of vulnerability, because they do not offer the basic social services in the country. There's no direct link. There's no togetherness between the government and the peasants. They don't even care about their well-being, really, in the communities. All they care about is, when they need them at the time of election so they can vote for them. This caused that whenever there's a natural disaster that strikes, this particular group of people are the one that are the most vulnerable. And sometimes they're victim, like even, twice or three times during the same period. So they're the ones who suffer every time there are like natural disasters. They're the one who loses their housing, that they lose their house, they lose their land, they lose everything. And even when some organizations wants to help, due to the fact that you can't really access those regions because there are no roads, so it becomes very difficult. And when these type of situations happen, those people from the government, they capitalize from our misfortunes. They capitalize from everything that we're going through. So the poorer we get, the richer they get. Although Tet Kole is serving 77 communities around the country, we have people helping us out, but it's the bare minimum that allows us to carry out activities. It does not help us, pay for whatever that was lost during natural disasters. The resources are not enough for that. They're just resources that we use in order to carry out activities for the communities in the country.
We have seen a lot of, in the media, external organizations, for example, USAID, saying that support to Haiti and Haitians. Has Tet Kole experienced any benefit from these external organizations? What support do they provide? And what additional support does Haitians and the peasants require from the Caribbean region?
USAID and European Union usually come to the country. Indeed, when they come here, they negotiate with the government. They just bring projects to negotiate with the government. They don't negotiate with us who are fighting for the country's sovereignty, who are trying to carry out the activities for the most vulnerable masses. So they negotiate with them. They do not negotiate with us. So we do not benefit directly from anything that when they come in the country. Okay, so another part of this question is that these organizations, these agencies, when they come here in the country, all they care about is food security. So they bring food from anywhere, from Taiwan and other stuff just to give us for food. But us, what we care about is food sovereignty. We care about food sovereignty. We want to be able to grow our own food, because then again, what happens after a month when we don't have the food that they brought us? So we want to be able to work in agroecology, to be able to have land, to fight for good seeds, so we can just grow our own food, so we can promote food sovereignty, because that's the only way for us to survive. That's a dynamic that we want to push in the country in this movement. So another thing, the type of support that we need is to be able to raise awareness in the peasant community, so they can produce more food, from their own land, and to also promote training, because I assume that if they know about climate change and every other thing, they will be able to respond to their needs, and they'll be able to face disasters in a better way. Although we do not have the sufficient funds to carry out our activities throughout the 77 communities that we serve, we just want to be able to promote, again, like we said, the food sovereignty, and we want to be able to make sure that all the needs are being met, and that all the peasants can rely on their own products, so they can carry out their activities, and so they can live a better life. And also, it would be very important for us to, if we could find, if the Caribbean community could help us organize exchange, so we could get training and about the environment, on agroecology, and so we know what's at stake and how to respond to different kind of situation. So those help would be very good for us in the community.
So I just want to end off here by asking if there's any final words the people from Tet Kole would like to share. What is an aspect about what's happening in Haiti that is being misunderstood by most people outside of Haiti?
Haiti, as we know, is one of the poorest countries in the West Hemisphere. There are a lot of organization that says that they're willing to help, and while we have like 6 million people that are suffering from hunger, there are still like a lot of millions, a lot of resources in the country, and we don't see them. We're not seeing anything. What they say they promise, they're gonna promise us, we can't even benefit from any of that money. What we would like is unity, is solidarity, and collaboration. And for our peasant class, we would like to have a voice and the resources so we can carry out all the activities and satisfy our needs. Also, it would be great if they could facilitate projects that would actually last, durable project that would cause us to become very autonomous, that so we could carry out our own activities. And that's what we would need, because we know that Tet Kole has like 3 classes. We have 3 group of people. We have the women, we have the youth, and also have a mix of both. And the most vulnerable are the women and the youngest ones. So, projects, durable projects, project that would last. All right, and I would like to announce to you guys that we're celebrating the massacre of 139 peasants that the army carried out in the city of Jean Abel. So that's what we're working on right now. That's what we're celebrating right now as we speak. Tet Kole, thank you guys for everything that you've been doing, and hope to solidify our relations so we can bring better results to help us go through everything that we're going through. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Edward, for being an amazing interpreter. Thanks again to Pierre for joining us and to Edward for providing interpretation to make this conversation accessible in English. And thank you for listening to the Stronger Caribbean Together podcast.
To learn more about the work of Tet Kole, visit our website, strongercaribbeantogether.org, where we feature regular updates from all our regional partners.
Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Caribe Together and on Facebook at Stronger Caribbean Together. And be sure to join André and I next month for another conversation demonstrating the everyday work done by people united against disaster capitalism.
Thanks to Alexander Evans for providing our theme song. This podcast was made possible by a grant from the Open Society Foundations.